I'm Rod Rohrich. I'm a board-certified plastic surgeon in Dallas, Texas. Welcome to Rohrich Knose podcast. The goal of this podcast and YouTube channel is to help you be a better you, a more educated you, someone that's going to become a smarter consumer, to make wise choices about your face, your body, plastic surgery, and beyond. So we select people and topics that are of interest, but also to help keep you safe and have a great outcome. So today, it's a real privilege for me to have Sydney with me, who's one of my rhinoplasty patients. She's 5 weeks post-op, right?
Yes.
And so often I have my patients, as a rhinoplasty surgeon, I see patients, of course, every day and talk to them, and they have questions about, well, what is it like to have a rhinoplasty? Well, I tell them what it's like to have a rhinoplasty, having done over 8,000, but, it's rare that you can actually have a patient talk about the experience, because sometimes it's like in life, and my wife reminds me of this all the time, it's not just about me, it's about what the patient feels and the patient undergoes. So we're really honored and privileged to have Sydney with us, and she is a beautiful young woman. She's not a Dallas native. She went to UT. Welcome Horns. And she currently works as an event planner in the area. And so she had her rhinoplasty on July 13th. So
yes.
And it was five weeks post-op today. And, she's in the process of healing. And so we're just going to talk about that. And so please let us know, in your comments or questions. We'll be happy to ask and answer them for you. But I'm going to kind of go through with Sydney about what are the things that motivated her and how the process was. So Sydney, tell me a little bit about yourself and why did you want to have a rhinoplasty? I mean, you're a young, beautiful woman already, so.
Well, for me, I knew that I wanted a rhinoplasty since I was 14. So it has been an 11-year decision-making process for me.
Okay.
But since then, I just never felt like there was the right time, whether it was me being in college, my job not being flexible enough for me to take off the time to properly recover. It just never felt like the right time. And honestly, just my general anxiety about moving forward with a decision like this. It wasn't until last year that I finally felt comfortable with, I'm going to do this. I know I've always wanted it. I'm never not going to want this.
Right.
This is for me, a decision for me only. I'm not doing this for anybody else. And, I spent so much time researching. So, and then I found time that worked well in the summer of 22, and I moved forward. Here we are.
It's great points here. So, self-motivated, smart, doing your research online. So tell us, let's maybe dissect a little bit about that. So the age 14, so what was going on with you? I know you're beautiful. You didn't feel good looking in the mirror, or tell us what.
Yeah, and I think the crazy thing is that while social media was up and coming when I was 14, it wasn't that I was looking at other women and was like, wow, I wish I looked like that. It was truly something that I felt inside of myself that I knew I wanted to change.
Yeah, no, I know. And did you go to a public school or like my daughter went to a private girls' school, and girls are tough.
Okay.
They're tough.
They are.
They're tough. They're not, boys are tough too, but girls are tough.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I did get some comments made to me that I won't ever forget. But at the end of the day, I didn't do this for those bullies. I did this for me. And I knew I wanted this before they ever made comments. And those comments primarily occurred in high school.
Right.
Which is very typical.
Very typical.
But I knew that this was meant to be.
That's great. So do it for you. Okay, remember. And I think that's great. That's great, Sydney. So, okay, so did you never broke your nose or anything? You never had any breathing issues? Nothing?
No, nothing at all.
So,
I actually never knew I had a deviated septum until you told me post-op.
Yeah, no, that's good. And you can see here with Sydney pre-op, she's beautiful. You're 5'11", right?
I am.
She's 5'11", so she's beautiful, she's tall. And then, here was her outside, her lateral view. So, she is an elegant, beautiful woman with a long face. And so this just, was something of concern to her. So what were your things that bothered you about your nose?
Yes, my top 3 concerns were the bump, and then my bulbous tip, and then every time I looked in the mirror, I just felt like it didn't fit my other facial features. I can't really put, a pin on that, but I just knew that when I looked at myself, I looked at my nose. I didn't look at my smile. I didn't look at my eyes, and I wanted that to be different.
Right. That's great. I mean, that's really what I always ask my patients, and of course, Sydney just is, a classic example. I ask them, what are the 3 things that bother you? And then if you can, logically fix those, and of course they match what your surgeon does, then that's perfect. And I saw all those things. So what was your process? I mean, it took you a few years, over 10 years. Okay. So I know you went to UTs, you went through that. So you said there was not a very good time. So what kind of was the focal point? Was it COVID, the time you had, or just said, and then how was your process?
I was 24, and I just felt like if I'm going to make a decision this big in my life, I'm going to do it now. So the process started fairly simple. It was actually just a Google search of top rhinoplasty surgeons in America. And for me, I was fully prepared to travel. I was not going to sacrifice expertise just to stay close to home. So to my luck, when your name popped up on multiple articles as number 1, I was like, okay, this is a good start. But for me, I'm a rather anxious gal, just naturally. So I was going to look into every single facet of your practice before making a decision. So I ended up doing that Google search probably over a year ago, and I researched you for, I would say, over 3 months. I watched every YouTube video. I watched every TikTok. I went on.
I'm terrible on TikTok.
Every Instagram. And a couple things that stood out to me, and a couple things that really propelled me into making the decision to picking up the phone and asking, do you guys have an opening? Can I have a consultation? Things like that. I looked for reviews. I think that it's so important to have positive reviews nowadays. And for you, it was across all platforms that were, as near perfect as reviews.
Well, nobody
as
has
you
perfect
can
reviews.
get. I know, as near as you can get, truly.
Yeah.
And then I think another thing that's so important is to have not necessarily so much as a large footprint on social media, but an impactful footprint on social media. And for you, your patients are commenting, they're saying they're loving their results. You have a large following, but for me, that didn't really matter. It was, how are people feeling about their results? How do they feel? How is their confidence afterward?
Right. I think that's good. And I think, Sydney, you really touched on some things that are important. You're finding a surgeon that's a true expert and somebody who's board certified, and also, reviews, Google reviews. Nobody is, if you ever see somebody with perfect reviews, they're all, it's going to be, all mine are real reviews, and they're from patients, because you can feel they're impassioned. And, nobody's perfect, you have these patients that, may not be totally happy or just, are just out in left field, but it's fine, because, we want, we're all human, and I always tell probably told you, I'm not God, just going to be better, straighter. And what impressed me about Sydney is when I met her, she was very, very focused. She had done her homework. I mean, I love patients like you, because, it was like, you knew what you wanted, you exactly what you came to see me for. So I love that. And because hopefully that's what this will help people do, is to become very informed. And I think the other thing I think that's impactful is that just being pragmatic about what's possible and what's not possible. I mean, look at 5 weeks. I mean, you look quite amazing, and yet the best is yet to come. And
yes,
as you know, and then we always do computer imaging. Now, I don't know, I'm just going to show these. These are the imaging that we talked about. We softened her nose, we brought her tip up, and then of course we took down her dorsum and reshaped it, and you can see that. Actually, I think you actually look better than your imaging, because these are just,
too.
Yeah, and you will. Now, most of the time, because nobody can guarantee a result. I'm not God, and nobody is, but it gives you an idea of what's possible. So tell me a little bit about the process, my staff, and what was the other things that kind of was driving factors in the experience. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I love that you just touched on your staff, because I really wanted to touch on that today. I'd love to talk about the procedure and the recovery, but the thing is what made this journey so special for me and so worth it, actually, is the staff. The experience that I had before in my consultation, when I came to, the office the day before, and then since I've been to the office multiple times after my surgery, because I love hanging out there.
You even like Letty, right?
Yes. I actually even know. I'm like, Letty's a freaking genius. Like, shout out to Letty. Love her.
Well, she takes out. I always tell people, I'm going to do your surgery, but you want Letty to take out your splints and your sutures. Right?
Yes.
You don't want me to do it.
Every single person there made me feel welcome, made me feel comfortable, and made me feel excited. And for a decision this large, I think that it can be anxiety inducing for a lot of people, but everyone was so excited for me, and afterward they were like, you look so good, and they are really just hyping me up, and I'm like, I love this. But it was genuine, and I think that I really felt that they're not just saying it to say it, but they truly want to make connections with the patients here.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Letty, one of my long-standing MAs, and she basically, you're right. She's very, very courteous. She gets down to work. She takes her splint out. But she's a professional. She's done thousands, and that's what you want. You want to feel like someone is really personalizing your care. So tell us about the process, the day of surgery. How was that? When you came in, I think you were really early in the morning.
I was early, yeah, which was great for me. I woke up, I left, and then I was there. And it was easy. It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I got there, I checked in, went to the back. I unfortunately can't recall the nurse's name who took care of me in the hour or two before, but she was incredible. She was funny. She made my nerves go away. I don't know how I wasn't nervous, but I wasn't.
Well, it's because of my anesthesiologist. And you met my anesthesiologist, called you, and
yes.
and she was awesome, right?
Yes, and she's also tall like me, so we walked back together and we kind of just joked about being tall, and it was just a really good way to just take the nerves down and take a breath. And when I laid down on the table, I was like, okay, wow, this is feeling real now. And she was like, okay, like, no need to be nervous. This is going to be super quick, and you're going to have a great nap. And I did.
You did, yes. Yeah, and I always meet my patients the day of, and we talk about the 3 top concerns, that ones you asked me about, because we always want to make sure that I'm in sync with you. So when I always tell you, when you dream it, I'll do it. And really, those are the things you want to do. Those 3 things that we talked about, reshaping your nose, your dorsal hump, and reshaping your tip and stuff. And so I think that's important, because imprinting is good, and you have to have a positive effect. And it's what Sydney's talking about is really the whole overall experience. I mean, during COVID, actually, I had elective gallbladder surgery, and I felt the same way. I had my same anesthesiology group. And it was great, although I don't remember anything from the operating room. I told them,
sure.
I don't remember anything, but it is the experience, and I think that's important. And then you wake up in recovery, and you got the splint on, and
yes, and I think that, just to expand on that point you just made, I think that so many patients go into this procedure and surgery thinking that I'm just going to get the surgery and then it's done. No. But it's not. It's the consultation before, building a relationship with you, making sure that we're connecting and that you think I'm a good fit for this.
Right.
And then the multiple follow-ups afterward. It's really quite an extensive process that I think a lot of people should be aware of and excited about, because it's not like you're doing this and just another patient, another surgery.
Right.
You build relationships.
Right, and it's a long-term thing. It's not like going to Neiman's and getting shoes.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a process,
Yes.
and it's a process about the healing and the swelling, and just like Sydney, she looks amazing at 5 weeks, but she still has swelling. It's going to be 80% on her tip and on her 90 on her dorsum, and it's all going to go down and swelling. You're numb in that area. So tell us about your nose now. What are you feeling? It's numb. It's a little stiff. We just talked before. And that's normal.
Yeah, absolutely. I have been taking photos when I take off my tape every 5 to 7 days, like instructed.
She's one of the few patients that listens for the instructions, so that's good.
I'm a rule follower.
Yeah.
But I've been taking photos of, my side profiles just on my cell phone and my front view, and I'm truly seeing differences in 5 day spans, and I think that's incredible. And I think it's so important to have patience in this process, which is typically hard to have. But, just understanding that this is truly a year-long process, and I'm not going to see results overnight, but that I'm trusting the process. And I think one thing that was so crucial and paramount to my recovery was the access that I had to you, was texting you and not feeling like I was a burden or an imposition to just text you. And I really expected just to text back, and then all of a sudden, FaceTime from Dr. Rohrich. I'm like, this is great. And you're wanting to talk and like see things. So I think that was very, very important to me.
Yeah. Well, it's personal. Like I said, it's an experience. And, I recently talked about, the 5 things I don't do as plastic surgeons. I actually, I have to like my patients. You have to be healthy. You have to be realistic. So, Sydney, you met all 5 criteria. And I think, that's important. And it is a process. It's not just a one-shot deal. And, the swelling, the postoperative care, the numbness, and then the swelling, it all is something you need reassurance occasionally. And also you have to believe the process. And I loved what you said. It's not patients with a TS, it's patients with a CE, patients, because it's probably the most common call I get. I just had one on the way over here about a patient who's like 6 months after her 4th rhinoplasty, and she said, I'm still swollen. I said, yeah, you have another year to go. And that's just normal, and it's normal wound healing because it's kind of up, like you've got good genes. You're actually ahead of schedule where you should be, but it takes a while. It's wound healing, how you heal, your genetics, and it's just part of that. I mean, the great thing about, Michelangelo and all the things that he did, it was in stone. So when it was done, it was great, but we operate in, with human flesh. So that takes a while, and it takes a while to heal. And so it's different. But so tell me, how are you doing now?
I'm doing great now. Of course, there are some days where I'm more uncomfortable than other days, but overall, my energy levels are back to normal.
How long did it take you? Now you're 5 weeks, and you're going to be able to exercise again.
Yes, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Pilates, woo. It took me, I think my energy levels were quite behind the typical patient. I know we spoke offline, but you said my case was a little bit more challenging than the typical case because the majority of my reconstruction was internal rather than external.
Right.
And so I think that it was just a longer recovery for me. It took me about, a solid 6 days to really just make a lap around my house. I was in pain. I was tired, but I think it's so important to educate the person who is going to be taking care of you and just prepping everything that you can beforehand. So shout out to my lovely boyfriend.
He was awesome.
He was awesome. Great. He helped me walk and eat and all the things. But after that, I started recovering very quickly. My bruising went down, my swelling went down, my breathing improved, my sleeping improved. So as of now, I'm feeling very normal.
Yeah, I know, it's great. And I think you bring up a great point about you need a companion. You need a surgical companion. And her boyfriend is a rock star. He's a police officer, but he's phenomenal. It's rare to see even a spouse there. They're usually non-present. So kudos to him. He's got a check mark for me.
Absolutely.
And, he took good care of you. He was there. He came to the post-op visits. They don't come to that. That's awesome. So I think he's a keeper. And, but, it is a process. And, it's all part of what's the normal post-op care. And what Sydney was talking about was, we did a septal reconstruction. Her septum was very deviated. So we had to do a lot more to the posterior part of her nose to make it straight. And sometimes with that, you have a little more discomfort. And that's not uncommon. In fact, you had headaches the first day or two. That's okay, because we really had to bring your septum straight, and that's all part of the process of a rhinoplasty. But no, I think you actually are now, I think, ahead of schedule. So what advice do you have for others that are wanting to seek a rhinoplasty and a rhinoplasty surgeon? Because this is really about the process, the selection, and then the post-op recovery in patients. So I think those are all key things you've talked about. So what do you think somebody who's looking to have a nose job or a rhinoplasty should do? Should they just go to TikTok and find their best surgeon?
Right. No, I do not think that they should just go to TikTok and find their answer. I think I have several points of advice, but my first one is just do your research, and I think that's easier said than done because there are so many options out there now. You could go really anywhere, but it's important to leave no stone unturned and look at every comment, every video, go back for at least 6 months, in my opinion. And I think that it's really important to be willing to travel or just not sacrifice based on locale or cost. I mean, you get what you pay for, and I think it's really important. This is one of the biggest decisions I've ever made in my entire life, and I'm glad that I went with the best. So I think another point of advice is prep work. I didn't understand how important it was to prep my home before my surgery. So making food, again, educating the person that's going to take care of you, educating yourself on what to expect afterward as much as you can, of course. And then just purchasing the things that I think are important. I think that the vitamin regimen that I was on was paramount to my recovery. Right. I think that instead of just popping a couple pillows under my head, I purchased a nice wedge, and I'm still using it to this day. I just think not to half-ass it, honestly, but to really dedicate your time and effort into making sure that the process goes as smoothly as possible once you get home, so you're as comfortable as you can be. And then I think my last point of advice is patience. And I said that before, but I sound like a broken record here, right? But
I love it.
It's just...
We didn't prep this either, by the way. I think it's great, Sydney, what you're saying.
I didn't understand how much patience I was going to have in this, and I did suffer from post-op anxiety, which you helped me through, and of course my family and friends did too. But at the end of the day, I just had to understand that this was a 12-month process, if not longer, and something that I would need to be okay with. And I think that it's really important to just allow yourself some time to heal and be okay with not feeling okay and then feeling okay, and just really taking it day by day and understanding that it's okay and you should trust the process.
Wow. I mean, Sydney, I think that's phenomenal. I mean, coming from a patient, it's more powerful than from me, because I say that every day, but it's called imprinting, and I think that's so important. You have to trust the process. I can't tell you, as I mentioned, I talk about the swelling is normal. I see it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I see this every day, and you just have to trust the process. Sometimes we have to facilitate it with a little catalog sometimes, but trusting the process is so important, and it just, in everything, but especially in rhinoplasty. For a primary rhinoplasty, it takes 12 to 15 months to see the final result. And in a secondary, it's double that, because then you have to rebuild the nose. So luckily, you sleep 12, and you're way ahead of where you'll be, because the swelling takes some time and the numbness and all of that. But now, you're 4 weeks out, so you can at 4 weeks, I let people do what they want.
Great.
Maybe not, skydive, but, and scuba dive at maybe 6 weeks, but everything. You can run, exercise, Pilates, yoga, I mean, all the things that you love to do, and you can be back doing what you want to do. And I think that's important, and, but that vision and that kind of perspective, it's patience, trusting the process is so important. So I think that's great. So, what questions do you have for me about the procedure that you probably thought you should have asked me before? I don't think she missed anything, but I mean, people sometimes say, I really wish I'd have asked you about this before surgery. And I said, fine. But, everything, of course, that I said has been written and we talked about. And that's why, we're doing this, because I'm going to share this with every one of my rhinoplasty patients. So
absolutely, yeah. And I come with a list of questions. Every time I see him, I have about 5 to 7 bullet points that Sydney in her list. If I'm anything, I'm prepared.
As long as it's 1 page only. Okay.
Yes,
right. Okay.
It's always 1 page.
No.
Honestly, I think I personally don't have any questions, but for those who aren't necessarily looking at this practice, but who are going to see this, who
Right.
aren't local
Right.
to Texas, I think it's important to explain when travel isn't an option, what should a patient look for in a surgeon that is local to their region?
That's a great question, Sydney. I think the most important thing is to find out that they're board certified, either a plastic surgeon or otolaryngologist, that's an expert in rhinoplasty. That's not somebody that's just going to be, doing 1 or 2 or 5 a year, but it's somebody that really, really does rhinoplasty. Like I do 8 to 10 a week. So find an expert. Find out that they operate in an accredited facility, that they have anesthesiologists that are board certified. They have the ability to do emergency care, a local nearby hospital. All these things are the safety things that are so important.
So important.
And then, of course, it's all about that comprehensive care. But it starts and ends with the surgeon, and as you have found out, and it's so important because you want to make it you want to make it a fun process, because life is short. You only want to just like hang out with people you like. You only want to have this done once.
Yes.
Even though it's never going to be perfect. You want to have it done once if possible. The revision rate is small in my hands, but it happens, right? Just because sometimes things don't heal like they should. So, well, Sydney, I think that was amazing. You were amazing. She's a natural. So please, like and subscribe to my YouTube videos and to this podcast. And if you have any comments or questions, please ask and we'll reply to them. And of course, ask and if you want us to do any other episodes or any other comments on what are things you'd like to hear about, because as I mentioned in the beginning, we want you to be a better you, a more educated you. And again, Sydney, thank you so much for this amazing podcast. I mean, you were phenomenal.
It was a pleasure, and it was fun. You were right. I had fun.
Fun, great. And of course, she looks awesome too. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.